Hey guys, tonight we step out of a noisy day and into a breathing alleyway that shimmers like the sea. Right now, you hear droplets falling from an old eave, a lamp's warm halo sliding across damp stone, and the hush of aged wood telling stories people forget when they sleep. I'm not dragging you through dry history. I'm guiding you through present tense details. Footsteps softening at a heavy door, a sliver of wind through the latch, and a secret waiting to be named. Your shoulders loosen, your breath slows. If a blanket is near, pull it to your chest. Safety makes the imagination travel farther. And don't worry, tonight's tale is featherlight, though you might grin at a gentle tease like, you won't survive. The wave of sleep, that island. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. By the way, tell me where you are and what your current local time is. Drop your city or country and the number glowing on your clock. I love how, across time zones, we gather around the same virtual campfire. Tonight's theme borrows a setting but crafts an entirely original version. Every scene, every sensation is newly written, so you can relax without any copyright worries. If you can hear your own window's breeze right now, treat it as the overture. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing in the olive valley that has known the smell of earth since childhood, and right now, hot wind blows through like a dry cloth rubbing along the spine of the fields. You hear the wooden bucket striking the well's wall, a hollow and tired sound, as if the throat of the whole village has been hoarse for a long time. The ground splits into thin lines, barley snaps at a touch, olives wither into little buttons of sadness. You walk slowly, so dust does not rise, a new habit of the dry season. Walk softly, speak quietly, eat little small motions to survive. In your mud and straw house, your mother smooths the worn mat. Your father sits before the cold hearth, sometimes poking the ashes, as if to find an ember still hidden. You hear calculations spoken half in words and half in sighs. The goats are gone, the flock of sheep as well. Your grandmother's silver ring traded for a few small sacks of grain. Your mother's hairpin enough for a few days of salt. You watch your mother remove the last hairpin, her fingers trembling a little, then going still, as if memory itself must learn not to cry. In the corner, the sandals you put on for work at dawn, the thin leather curling like a boat about to run dry. The creditors arrive at noon, when the sun throws the shortest shadows. They do not ask about next year's harvest, do not ask for promises. They only look around like people choosing household tools. What still breathes? What still has strength? At 12 years old, you first hear adults say, service contract. You do not understand the meaning of the word. You only understand your father's eyes avoiding yours, and your mother's hands gripping each other when the trader tells you to open your mouth so he can check your teeth. You raise your arm, your bicep is squeezed as if testing a coil of rope. Is it supple? Is it durable? Can it work long? In that moment, you understand something no one teaches. Your body suddenly has a price like an item. The village's makeshift market goes up as quickly as a storm tent. Coils of chains lie on mats like metal snakes at midday sleep. Ledgers flip and flap like a kite with a broken string. People speak numbers not meant for you, but meant for your life. 20 years of labor in exchange for a few silver ingots enough to pass the winter. You hear the word reasonable pop out like a dry pebble falling into an earthen basin, light yet echoing far. At that time, hunger is a strict and skilled teacher. It teaches everyone how to nod at the right moment. You look at your father's palm as the trader counts the silver. Each coin shines like a promised season of fullness. Each coin also goes dim like a New Year's celebration without you. They tell you that you will learn a trade. In the kitchen you will know the fire. In the household you will know the rules. In the fields you will know the seasons. They say you will return, have land, have a wife, have a roof that does not leak like the one now. Words flow smooth as honey on the tongue, leaving a stickiness hard to wash away. You see your mother nod, her lips moving with the consolations she has always said when you were small. It will be quick, child. Your father adds, you will go and you will return. They do not lie to hurt you. They say sentences that help them breathe through the afternoon. The day you leave the village is a windy day, the kind of wind that makes road dust rise and walk alongside people. You put on your curled sandals, your ankle wrapped with a soft cord before the real iron ring arrives. You hear children's cries break in fragments, then go quiet like a flame capped by a large hand. They link you to the chain of people. The boy in front a little taller, the one behind smaller and wheezing from too much crying. You turn your head one more time. Your ramshackle roof stands there like a friend not good at farewells. The thin kitchen smoke so faint you are not sure whether it is smoke or memory. Your mother does not run after you. Your father does not either. Not because they do not want to, but because poverty has locked their feet at the doorstep. You walk, and each step is a calculation performed beyond your will. Ahead, the trader talks as if singing. Behind, your village shrinks until it disappears after a bend. You think of the dry well, the knife your father uses to shave mould off the loaf, your mother's call to come home before the sky fully darkens. All of that gathers into a small bundle lying at your left chest. You hold it by keeping your back straight and your shoulders from shaking. The caravan passes by another family's field. People look and lower their faces back to their work. The dry season teaches everyone how to look less. On the first night away from home, you lie on your side on the dry ground and learn to listen to the chain's sounds, the light touch and the long drag, 2 sounds you will know as you know, an old song. You look up at the sky, but the sky seems to have many lines drawn on it in pencil. Those zigzags are olive branches reaching out. You count stars to lull yourself and stop halfway because your throat is too dry. An older person tells you to drink sparingly, save water for the morning. A younger one presses his knees together tightly, as if keeping everything by holding one part of the body. You do not speak much. You understand that here, speaking little, is a new kind of wisdom. The next morning, they give you a hard piece of bread, and you learn to chew with patience. You hear the trader describe the city where there are white stone columns, houses as large as your entire village, a hearth that always has smoke, and money flowing like water through people's hands. You do not dare imagine too long, because each time you imagine, your stomach tightens like a pulled cord. You choose to look at your feet, at the dust on your insteps, changing color with the sun. What you can control now is your pace. Steady, not fast, not slow, as if walking just enough would make the road shorter. You walk many more days, enough for the smell of the village on your clothes to vanish, replaced by the shared smell of the caravan, sweat, sun, and a hint of iron. You learn new tricks. If a small pebble slips into your sandal, walk patiently a few more steps for it to find its way out. If a surge of homesickness reaches your throat, switch to counting breaths to 10, then back to 1. Those tricks do not save you from fate, but they keep you from shattering into pieces along the way. When the caravan stops at the edge of a strange town, you understand that from here, your story will enter a different kind of sentence words, not found in the village school's books. You are told to be silent, keep your back straight, and open your hands when someone wants to examine you. You do as told, each movement, even like a ritual already written. You say softly to yourself, "I am still here." Then take a deep breath so your heart does not lose its beat. From that moment, your time begins to be exchanged for silver, and your name, bit by bit, is translated into a commodity, obedient and beautiful. And you walk on, carrying the small bundle of the Olive Valley, like a hidden fragrance amid a sandstorm, the only thing no one can price on your behalf. You walk, and each step now is a steady tap on the dry ground, like a metronome keeping tempo for a piece no one wants to hear. You learn to step with the breath of the person ahead. Inhale when the link lifts, exhale when it lowers. When the sun rises high, the smell of hot iron blends with dust and sweat into a dense air that clings to the throat. You do not cough. You swallow slowly so the throat does not sting more. To the left are rolling olive hills, to the right a sun-blinding coastline, and far away the cry of eagles drawing circles in the sky. But you do not look long. If the eyes lift too much, the chain will pull them back. Your world, right now, is exactly the length of a single chain's reach. You hear the caravan teach itself small tricks, like passing along ways to fold blankets so as not to be scolded. Do not look straight, they say. Only look at foot level. Do not answer unless asked. Do not let anyone see you understand what they have not told you to understand. You listen and file it into a drawer in your mind, next to the old field lessons. How to snap an olive twig without hurting the tree. How to choose a flat stone to throw ripples. When a boy behind stumbles, you slow half a beat so the chain does not jerk hard at his neck. You do not turn back, but you know he has nodded thanks in silence. At midday, the traders plant stakes, threading the rope through each person's neck. Some are so tired they sleep as if collapsing into their own shadow. Some keep their eyes on the sky until their lids sting from the sun. You drop your shoulders, lean back against the stake, count breaths to the rhythm of 4 in and 6 out. You let sweat run from temple to cheek like a small river, and do not wipe it, so your body loses less water. Each drop hits the ground with a soft tick, like another clock counting its own time. You learn to hear those sounds. The scrape of rope, the drag of sandals, the water from the wineskin poured in sparing sips. Those sounds, strangely, make your mind smaller, easier to calm. Sometimes, along the road, people stop to look at the goods. They usually arrive with the smell of wine and perfume, fingers too clean, eyes glittering with a haggler's habit. They do not ask whether your shoulders can pull a plough. They look at form, skin, the obedience in the eyes. You know how to stand, so as not to draw too much attention, nor be scolded as sluggish. Back straight just enough, chin lowered just enough, eyes set on an empty point between the other's feet. When an unfamiliar hand touches your bicep like testing a rope, you let the muscle soften, like a young branch that knows how to bend. You understand you are at the most pliable age, and that is why they bid higher. At night, sometimes the sky is clear, wind passing over the slopes carrying the smell of dry grass and sea salt. You close your eyes. Imagine the mountain wind of home slipping through the veranda, making the thread tied to the latch tremble. You imagine the kitchen smoke clinging to your mother's hair, the wooden dipper striking the jar's rim. That imagining is not to escape the present, but to wedge a thin cushion between 2 rungs of fear, enough that your mind does not shatter. When you open your eyes, road dust and iron smell return you to the right place. You are not sad. You set the memory down like placing a stone to mark a way home, then keep breathing. The adults in the caravan speak little. They know hope is a loss. The more invested, the more is lost when the market comes. They save their voices for tight reminders. Lower your head, walk evenly, drink little. The smaller ones cry until their voices go hoarse, or until the whip teaches the throat a new lesson. Silence is also a skill. You see swollen lips, you hear sobs swallowed into bellies, and you lower your own heart's voice further, choosing short, clean sentences without head or tail. Here, fully formed sentences with subjects and predicates become a luxury. In the afternoon, shadows stretch long on the ground. You see your shadow thin as a blade of grass. You and the shadow learn a chasing game. When you are tired, the shadow runs ahead. When you brace, the shadow waits. You begin to measure distance not by miles, but by small rhythms. How many times the waterkeeper carries the wineskin along the line? How many times the overseer spits on the ground? How many hisses slip through the teeth of the pack camels? You write it into your head like scoring a track. Here is the slow tempo, here the push, and there a short rest. Some days the caravan stops at a dry bend of stream, pebbles showing like the backs of fish sunning. The overseer allows face washing. You cup your hands to scoop a little standing water, touch it to eyelids, to the nape. The skin answers with a very soft thank you. A kid hands you a dried olive as if passing contraband. You trade back a small trick. Stuff a bit of cloth at the heel of your sandal. It will hurt less to walk. Those silent exchanges make the road feel 1 notch less harsh. You realize that amid the wire mesh of commerce, there are still a few human threads that can be woven together. At the first village gates, the air changes. The road hardens under the soles. The dust is finer, the smell of garbage and wine mixed together. Voices are louder, higher. Wheels grind over paving stones like little saw blades. You hear hawkers, people calling each other, children playing back and forth. Each sound like a small bell, signaling you are about to enter a place that treats people as function. There, suffering is wrapped in ritual and learning. They will set a beautiful wine table, say very fine sentences, then put you exactly where their eyes have measured. Camping at the city's edge that night, you have trouble sleeping. Not because of fear. You are tired of fear. You cannot sleep because of new sounds, distant music, dogs barking in echoes, the flagpole humming in the wind. You turn on your side, rest your neck on your arm, and repeat the familiar breathing exercise. You describe tomorrow in your head with minimal sentences. There will be eyes. There will be hands touching. There will be questions. There will be nods. You do not add adjectives so the heart does not bold the fear. Then you tell yourself, I am still here. That sentence is a latch. You hear it catch into the doorframe, fitting neat. Morning pours over the row of tents like a stream of cold water. They undo the ropes, count heads, drive you on. You see a straight road leading into the city, high walls on both sides, above them flags pulled taut. In the distance, white stone columns rise like treeless trunks. You understand the beautiful road has turned into a frame. In that frame, they will place you, square you up, tap the ruler, and price you. You tighten your fingers slightly, drop your shoulders, keep your steps even. You do not try to become stone. You choose to become water. Water passing through cracks, soft but not gone. When the city gate opens, noise crashes like waves. You are not swept along. You step half a pace back into yourself, where a small room is always lit, with a single table and a single chair for one person to sit, breathe, and say their own name. There, you recite the survival tips like reading instructions before setting sail. Do not look straight. Do not answer when not asked. Do not let anyone see you understand what they do not want you to understand. And if possible, save a beautiful breath for yourself. A breath long enough that memory, even if shorter, still pins one short sentence into your heart. I am still here. Then you step on, and so does the caravan, like a river carrying small stones that know how to call each other's names in silence. You hear Athens greet you with sound before you see it. A layer of murmuring waves interweaves, the haggling, the pleading, the commands, short bursts of laughter, the cries of hawkers rising and falling like a strange instrument. You stand at the market's edge, take a slow breath, the smell rushing up like a hot towel pressed to your face. Sweat and urine, long-stored fear, plus a layer of expensive perfume trying to cover what everyone already knows. You drop your shoulders loose, set yourself into a familiar rhythm of breathing, like a narrator quietly reminding you, just breathe, just observe. No need to resist the sound, only pass through it. They pull you into a bright-coloured tent. Water pours down your back. Unfamiliar hands rub your skin as if scrubbing an item before putting it on a shelf. Warm olive oil is smoothed on. Your skin catches the light. Your muscles show their lines. You understand clearly this is not a ceremony of honor. This is a price-raising procedure. You learn how to let your mind leave your body for a few minutes, like hanging a shirt on a hook and stepping back to look. Strangely calm. When they hand you a thin tunic already dried, you tie the cords neatly, check the hems so they fall in the right fold. Everything here is staged to be beautiful in the buyer's eye. You step out onto the stone-paved court, sunlight sweeping across the polished surface. The wooden platform is set a bit high. You stand on it. Your feet feel the old scratches under the new coat of paint. The auctioneer begins to chant, his voice rising and falling as if memorized. Origin, estimated age, condition, gentle temperament, pleasing appearance. Those phrases are like keys fitting the desires of each group of customers. You do not look straight. You look at the empty point between the other's 2 feet, so as to be neither rude nor provocative. You stand as a straight line that knows how to breathe. Around you, there are 3 easy-to-spot types of buyers. The one seeking shoulder strength for the fields moves heavily, eyes measuring mass more than shape. The one needing household hands will look at your palms, the way you hold a tray, the stillness of small motions. And then there is the one who comes for refined entertainment. They look at the eyes, the angle of the jaw, the way you stand still for long, and remain supple. They do not need to speak much. Ringed fingers speak for them, sliding over the bicep like testing a rope, combing through the hair as if checking fabric. You keep your body loose, neither stiff nor limp, like a young branch knowing how to turn with the wind. The chanting continues, threaded with nods, frowns, the soft clink of silver touching like sparse rain. You recognize the familiar rhythm of an auction, cautious at the start, then quickening until one hand rises at the right moment. That hand appears a middle-aged man, not tall but taking space with confidence. A purple silk robe makes the crowd part, the rings on his hand catch the light, and a thin smile, like a stroke of ink closing an account. His name glides through the air, Lysander. You do not need to hear it a second time to understand the result. The price is sealed quickly, as if in everyone's head this purchase had finished before it began. You hear the counting of silver, but you do not cling to that sound. You hear your heartbeat grow smaller, steadier. The auctioneer moves on to the next lot of goods, his voice still rounded, while you look down at your own feet. They are still those feet, but the feeling of belonging has shifted. From the olive countryside to some house in Athens' wealthy quarter, where marble columns and wall paintings tell heroic tales without a tremor. The market manager raises a paper. Lysander nods. A servant steps up, and you leave the wooden platform. Through the shade of the awning you see the ground glitter like shards of broken mirrors. You walk along the row of pottery stalls, past a corner of perfumes, where the sweet, resinous scent clings to your collar. Sometimes a curious hand reaches to touch, but the servant behind you is used to blocking it with a single glance. You hear the murmurs, "Good item, easy to train, take to the northern quarter." Those sentences do not address you as a person. They speak to each other about an investment. On the way out of the market, your shadow stretches long on the paving stones, thin, flexible, and tough like a rope trailing behind. You look at that shadow, quietly say in your head, "Keep walking, do not run." You know from this moment your name becomes a luxury, a thing only whispered on rare occasions, like a secret kept for yourself. But the new label, whose property is cheap and durable, sticking to every call, every order, every ledger. You do not argue with those words. You only put them into the right drawer, so that when needed, you can open and look without losing your way. You pass a green-bottomed basin, where a few water carriers stop to wash their faces. For a moment, the noise recedes, as if someone turned it down. You press 2 fingertips to your temples. Imagine a stream of water sliding down, wiping away some of noon's dust. No one gives you time to do that, but you can do it by imagining enough coolness to take a few more steps without stumbling. Right then, the servant clears his throat softly, and you know you must keep pace. The gate of the wealthy quarter appears, tall stone columns, trees planted in straight lines, the air lightly scented with flowers. You tell yourself, keep the rhythm, keep the shoulders, keep the eyes on the familiar empty point. You do not know what rooms lie inside, what rules, but you already know how to learn quickly without losing your breath. Passing the last shadow of the market street, you hear the cries fade into gaps, replaced by clogs, wheels, small talk poured like tea. The world has changed its musical backing, but you are still the one keeping time for yourself. Before turning a corner, you allow yourself one glance back. The slave market is still there, noisy and busy like a machine. You do not wish it silent. You only acknowledge it as part of the picture you are passing through. Then you turn, step into a cooler street, where the pavement is clean and voices are polite. You know, from now on, each call will carry 2 words of possession. But you also know, among those words, you still have a small space to place your breath. And sometimes, with one breath set in the right place, you have held the thinnest anchor of a human being. You keep walking, not fast, not slow. As always, you review in your head the things to remember. Do not look straight, do not answer unless asked. Do not let anyone see you understand what they do not want you to understand. And add one new thing for today. Whenever you catch a glossy stone surface, let it remind you of a face of water. There, you can still see yourself, even if only in a blink. You see enough to know you are still here. Then you follow the servant's steps, turn through an arched gate, leave behind the market's noise a piece whose climax has finished, and enter the next section of the story, where light is filtered through leaves, and everything looks gentler, but not any less cold-edged. The large door closes behind your back with a wooden sigh. You stand on the cool stone floor, letting the soles of your feet get used to the just right smoothness of each mosaic tile. The air here smells of wine and perfume. a soft layer of scent laid over the strangeness felt by a newcomer. On the walls, mythic mosaics speak in colour. Horses pull the sun's chariot, blue sea beats against a hull, faces that never grow tired. You hear Demetrius's footsteps as even as a clock's hand. He does not need to shout. His voice goes a little ahead of his body, enough for you to understand your place in this house. You follow him down the long corridor, your breath clinging to the instructions. Barley porridge in the morning, bread and olives at night. Bathe when told, wear what is issued, speak when asked. Do not look a free person in the eye. Do not refuse any order, including entertainment. Each sentence is like a pebble dropped down a deep well, sending out a small ring, then going still very quickly. You nod, not to agree, but to remember. Demetrius smiles faintly when he locks the rules in. A thin smile like a worn blade, not shiny, but still cutting. The stairs leading down to the lower house are cooler. The walls are so thick they seem built to swallow sound, turning voices into breath, footsteps into shadow. Small rooms line up, low doors, floors strewn with clean straw. A slit of light runs across the wall like a thin blade of daytime slipping in. You are brought to a cell where 3 people are arranging their space with motions both frugal and gentle. Marcus looks at you first. His eyes are deep as a dry season well, but at the bottom a streak of light remains. He nods, says nothing, and lets silence perform the ceremony of greeting. Alexios, older, has a scar on his cheek that tells a story you do not ask. He folds the straw blanket slowly, smoothing the edge as if folding up a day. Philemon, the youngest, has a gaze too old for his age. Fingers tapping lightly on the wall 3 slow beats, too fast a language without letters, only breath. You answer with a nod, then sit, letting your knees touch the stone floor without dropping your breath. You listen as they pass you a survival handbook like low-spoken spells. Walk behind shadows, not behind sounds. When setting a tray, keep the short edge toward the holder. When pouring, do not let the last drop fall. When silent, be silent with your eyes. They speak of feasts called symposiums, cakes, fine wine, polished words where by day people speak of justice. By night they test the endurance of the powerless with limits labelled pleasure. You are instructed about the preparations. Wash clean, oil the skin, a thin tunic to be beautiful, jewelry to be different. None of it is for honor, all of it is for display. You learn to let your mind go half a step ahead of your body, like a scout searching each room by heartbeat before your feet touch the tiles. Demetrius takes you through the equipment room. There are towels, wine jars, wooden trays, feather dusters, vials of oil. Each item has rules for holding, placing, wiping. You practice walk, stop, turn, pour like a dance. 3 straight steps, a half turn, a tilt of the wrist, eyes placed on the empty point on the carpet. He stands at a distance, only sometimes tapping his finger on the table. The tap is a comma in the command sentence. You adjust, back straight but not tensed, neck soft but not too bowed, arms loose enough that the tray becomes a natural extension of the body. Downstairs you learn a timetable that needs no clock. Morning hears the kitchen knockpots 1, 2, 3 that is porridge time. At noon, the roll of a wooden tub in the yard signals sweeping the porch. Late afternoon, the scent of perfume drifting down the steps marks the hour of presentation. Late night, the strings above fall like thin rain. Then you rinse soap from your hands in a small basin. Tie your garment cords one last time. Check whether the hem lies right on your shoulder. If done right, each task turns into habit. And habit is the safest harbour in a place with many undercurrents. The reward-punishment system needs no long explanation. Obedient, and the blanket is 1 layer thicker on drafty nights. Dinner gets an extra piece of bread. A birthday, if you still keep the habit of counting, might earn an hour of sleep without being called. Resist, and it is the sun yard and the whip, sometimes even 3 days without water numbers that do not need shouting, only hanging in your head like warning signs. You understand. Here, fairness is not a measure. Here, stability is an art. You choose to learn that art by polishing every small motion like a potter smoothing a rim. You memorize the unseen map of the house. Heavy steps in the west wing mean porters. Slow sandals to the north lead to the cloth storeroom. The clink of metal is the weapons yard keep away. Bobbing laughter from the great hall means a long night. You make a path for yourself among those sounds, like a small fish finding calm water behind each rock. Marcus teaches you to speak with hands. 2 quick taps to the wrist mean stop. 1 touch to the collarbone means lower your eyes. Sliding a fingertip across the thumb joint means go around. Alexios teaches you how to be absent while present. Stand in a room as if standing outside a wind, eyes set where no one is, ears listening without flinching. Philemon teaches you to count silence. Count to 10 with breath, each number a thin ribbon of water passing a dry throat. These lessons have no paper and pen, but you engrave them into your palms with the memory strength of one forced to live. You watch Demetrius as he passes the rose. He leaves behind him a silence thicker than usual. He seldom loses his temper, but everyone knows when not to drop a spoon's clink. People say he once stood in your place and climbed by precision and coldness. Knowing that lets you see more. Here, the way up and the way down are paved with the same kind of stone. A misstep slips, a correct step wears down. You tell yourself, step slow, step even, neither arrogant nor despairing. In late afternoons, when sunlight crawls to the wall's seam, you help Alexios burnish wooden trays, wiping each swirl of grain like reading a rounded sentence. During that, Marcus tells you the upstairs kitchen often lacks people at night. Whoever is assigned there faces the noisy room less. Philemon gives you a thread braided from a torn hem. Tie it to your wrist. When breathing is hard, touch it. You'll remember you are breathing. Things as small as a thread. As a stance tip, these are the makeshift bridges over a long night. On the first night, you hear the strings from afar fall onto the stone floor like drops of warm water. Laughter spreads along the corridor and then dissolves quickly when doors close. Each sound above is like someone's step across your chest. Light, but even. You are not called up. That night your task is to keep the lower rooms tidy, keep the water warm, have clean towels ready. You pass each cell, straighten blanket edges, set the cup closer to the corner, pick up a stray straw. Such small motions stop your hands from shaking. When the iron door in the hallway closes, your back meets the cool wall, and the room suddenly grows wider. Marcus leans, his voice thin as a thread crossing the room. Do not let them take the last voice in your head. You close your eyes for 1 beat. Repeat that like a wish needing no shooting star. What is the voice in your head? It is the sentence, I am still here. It is your name said softly, that no one may change. It is the rhythm of breath you choose. Slow or fast is your right, though everything else is not. After that, you lie down, place your hand on your belly to feel the breath rise and fall like a small boat. On the ceiling, the light slice from the door jamb cuts a slanting line, enough to tell you night is not too deep yet. In another cell, Alexios turns, straw rustling lightly like rain. Philemon is already asleep, fingers still keeping the old tapping, dreaming or waking the same. You let your ear gather the small sounds, the water still warm in the clay jar, the wind passing a brick seam, insects tapping their claws. Each sound latches to the next into a thin rope, and that rope ties to your anchor post. At dawn you rise before the call, light a fire with the last dry scraps, warm your hands over the small flame. You learn to ladle barley porridge, so the last bowls are still warm, and set aside a portion for the sick. Demetrius passes, glances at the pot not boiling over. He says nothing, but you know. Here, praise is a very rare nod. You do not need more. You have a small right to begin the day. The next day, the old rules repeat, but you have changed a little. You know where the floor is slightly slick. Know the third step from the bottom of the kitchen stairs creaks. Know which wine jar weighs heavier though they look the same. Walking through the mosaic hall, you do not look into the God's eyes on the walls. You look at the small chips that make them and tell yourself, people join colours to form a face, and you join breaths to form a day. So it goes, each breath placed right is another brick in the wall against panic. That evening, as the perfume once more slips downstairs, you tie your garment cords a bit tighter. Remind yourself to keep your shoulders loose. You do not know whether your name will be called tonight. But you know, whatever happens, The nucleus as small as dust in you is still there, named by Marcus, shielded by Alexios, kept in time by Philemon. You place your hand on your wrist, touch the small thread, and you whisper, like a narrator speaking to a listener before dimming the lights. Inhale 4, exhale 6. We will go through tonight gently. In your head, your voice is intact. You stand before the doorway opening into the crescent-shaped salon, and right now, the scent of ripe wine blends with warm resin like a thin mist laid over your skin. The servants have bathed you, rubbed on a layer of oil so your skin catches the lamps. The thin tunic clings like a fresh sheet of paper, and the bracelet fastened lightly on your left wrist is not to honor you, but to mark you as an item placed in the correct spot. You take a slow breath in, a long breath out, letting your heartbeat fall close to the tempo of the string music, drifting lightly from the corner. Couches are arranged like a half moon, a great wine jar set in the center, glazed cups laid in small circles like spreading rings of water. The men recline, shoulders draped in thin cloth, their early evening voices clear and high. War, poetry, ethics, how to govern a city, state so it endures. You tread across the carpet as if walking on water, your feet leaving no sound. Left hand lifts the tray, right hand tilts the jug. The last drop does not fall. Each time you set a cup down, you turn its mouth toward the host, as you were taught. You are present just enough to be seen, and absent just enough that no one is troubled. When the wine passes from warm to hot, words begin to loosen. Short laughs slip in. Small beckoning gestures pair with a soft call. At first, the requests are harmless. Fan me, add a cushion, straighten a shawl on someone's shoulder. You answer with movement, not with the mouth. You learn very quickly the room's private rhythm. Laughter always dips by half a beat before a new show begins. Conversations nearing a point suddenly stop, as if they want to catch another sound, perhaps the breath of someone just called to step forward. You look at the world through small details to keep your mind at ease. Lamp fire shining through a cup's rim forming a thin ring of gold. The carpet seems slightly skewed at the western corner, a very old wrinkle at the host's eye that appears only when he speaks of virtue. You place your attention there as you would a pebble in the hand, heavy enough to steady you, small enough that no one notices. Each time a gaze lingers too long, you drop your eyes to the empty point between the other's feet, lower your chin a degree, and shift half a step so you become the room's flow instead of its center. You discover an underground score. The soft clink of cups as high notes, the brush of fabric on upholstery as low notes, the strings from the corner as a long background drone. Upon that score, you learn to fit your own breath into the rests. Whenever the heart wavers, you call the familiar drill. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. Thus, you do not fight the wave, you skim its surface. Tonight, their learning those great names lies over the air like a beautiful, cool curtain. And you see clearly the curtain's true function, to hide what needs no naming. You also learn the language of hands. The index finger taps the cup's rim once, they want more wine. Twice, they want the pourer changed. The thumb rubbing the lip means a warm towel. The middle finger inclining toward the lamp stem means add a wick. 2 fingers closed before the chin mean come near. You hear, understand, perform. Without a word, the room is full of orders. Inside that silence, you keep a small exit for the mind. Count the mosaic squares on the sill. Memorize the vine motif around the jar's mouth. Listen to wind slipping through a grill like the whisper of someone standing outside it all. At times, questions about your homeland are tossed out like a soft trap. Which region? How is the harvest? What does your smoke smell like? You answer just enough. A region's name, a word for a season, a thin smell of smoke. You add nothing that would keep memory awake all night. When a hand stops where it should not, you shift your weight to the opposite foot, creating a legitimate angle of movement to slip free of the touch, still keeping the silence on your lips. There is no debate about ethics here, only habits of control cleverly packed in shining words. Amid the waves of talk and laughter, you notice the eastern wall painting where a god lifts a wine gourd, eyes looking down on the world without feeling. You think for a moment people fit colored stones together to raise a myth, and you fit small habits together to raise a safe night. Tilt a cup to the right degree, Step half a foot when turning. Remind your shoulders to loosen each time the heartbeat climbs. No one records these things, yet it is precisely the small, repeated details that are the seams keeping your coat of calm from tearing. The room changes, register with each watch of the night. First comes debate, then private talk, then tight orders. You are like a shadow that serves, arriving one beat ahead of a need, drawing near when not called, disappearing when just enough. You learn to say no with the small ellipse of a step circling behind a chair instead of facing it, and with the timing of a towel half a beat late, so they pull their hand back themselves. These techniques do not defeat anyone. They only help you remain whole in your own shape after the night has passed. An elderly philosopher lifts a grave voice about temperance, about higher souls, about the natural order. You pour wine for him and see in the cup's bottom the reflection of your bracelet. The bracelet flashes for a moment, then goes dark. You understand. Everything blazes at times because it sits under the lamp at the right angle. Their learning is the same. When that fine curtain shivers with the draught, you glimpse behind it an old mechanism you already saw at the market. Measuring, pricing, arranging. Seeing that does not make you angry. It only strips away illusion, and thus fear. When the night has sunk deep, the lamp flame draws in, the strings thin. You are ordered to withdraw. Along the corridor, you hear laughter fall onto the tiles like scattered drops of rain. You set the tray in the equipment room, wash your hands in a basin, gone cool, dry each finger's webbing, remove the bracelet and leave it in a small dish. The oil scent fades on your skin, revealing the true sweat of the body, an ordinary smell that lets you recognize you are still human. Down in the cellar, the cool dark is like a blanket. Marcus looks up, a question in his eyes without words. You nod small. You sit by the straw bed, lean your back on the wall, give your spine a rest. Music still lingers in your ears, but you let it pass as a stream runs itself through a stone cleft. You speak very softly, only loud enough for yourself what you need to remember to be calmer next time. The lamp's positions, the shortest way to the side kitchen, who tends to tap the glass twice, who often changes his mind at the last moment. That is not an enemy's list. That is a map. You close your eyes, let your shoulders drop, and lay your breath onto the cool stone. Behind the door you just left, learning is a beautiful curtain. Before you, you have understood the curtain's true use. Concealment. But you also understand there are very small slits of light through the weave, and through them you can still see your path, a path of small motions, of steady breathing, of saying your name in your head, as if calling a friend to sit beside you. The first night upstairs has passed. You are still here, and tomorrow, whether the curtain is drawn wider or pulled tighter, you will carry the anchor of breath that saved you from the big waves of a room with too many lights. You know, it does not take many whips to break a person if that person is cut off from their world. Everything begins with silence. No letters, no messages passed hand to hand by errand runners. Your mother tongue is banned like an instrument with its strings removed. Friends are split into different rooms. Marcus moves to the west wing, Alexios to the upstairs kitchen, Philemon to the cloth storeroom. You still pass each other in the corridor, but the gaze only manages to touch the crack in the wall, not lingering, not sending signals. You learn to talk by the sound of footsteps. Light means all right, urgent means alarm. You shrink yourself small, like a stream forced into a narrow pipe, still flowing but no longer with banks. Then comes uncertainty. No one knows when they will be called, for what task, or where the boundary of wrong lies. Yesterday, a streak of water on the tray was a small matter. Today, it becomes lack of care. This morning, you bowed your head deep enough, and it counted as modesty by afternoon. The same depth is read as cowardice. A breath taken at the wrong moment can make the room turn toward you. You begin to hear sounds with your spine. The clink of a spoon. 1 is ordinary, 2 is inspection, 3 is clear the way. The scrub of a rag on stone fast means a slip. Slow means someone is coming. You realize the hidden lesson. The real rule is, there is no rule. When every measure grows slippery, the mind is forced to stand on one leg, and the other leg does not dare touch ground. After uncertainty comes erasing the name. They give you a new name, easier to call. rounder on the mouth when spoken at the wine table. The old name is gradually forbidden, like an old song with no frame left. If you accidentally write your name on the dust of the window, you will have to scrub the whole frame until the dust disappears, and the letters too. Religious rites turn into the house's rituals. A different hour for bowing, a different prayer phrase, a face turned toward a different wall. Food changes, clothes change the same color, the same cut, the same measure of tidy. When someone calls the new name, you say yes, faster than you respond to the sound of your own heart. That gradual slipping does not cause pain. It just makes you forget how tall you once were. The wear comes from small details. Sleeping time is shifted half a watch, so the room above makes less noise. Rations are measured by obedient, not yet obedient, not by heavy light bodies. The eyes must be lowered to the correct degree, off by the width of one eyelash, and you are corrected. The feet must be light to the right beat. Walking fast from fear is wrong. Walking slow from fatigue is wrong. You practice self-surveillance like a new trade. Hunch your back when passing a free person. Clean the tray before your name is called. Apologize, even when you are not yet sure what you did wrong. The most exhausting thing is not heavy work. It is living in a low state of vigilance all day, never fully panicked, but never allowed to rest. At noon, Demetrius passes by, saying nothing. The slap of his sandals is like a pencil, lightly scoring the floor, a hidden straight line pointing direction. Those below pass down experience, like a recipe for keeping water warm. Do not hope for fairness, hope for a calm day. That means, do not wait for rules, wait for wind. You understand hope here is a loss. The more you invest, the deeper the loss when uncertainty arrives. Instead, you hoard small habits. Lay the towel on the diagonal for an easy pull. Count the steps with your breath. Hide a dry piece of bread in your hem for the sick. Sometimes, someone tries to break the circle. A kid makes a sign to run, is caught in the yard, made to stand and sun until the heat bends the back into a small bow. Alexios once defies an order, is tied for 3 hours by the water post, not to thirst to death, but so the whole lower house passes by to learn the lesson. The consequence is always displayed at the most crowded spot, like a new mosaic set on the wall. Look, and the message is clear. You engrave it not because you fear the whip, you fear something else. Fear of waking in the morning and no longer recognizing who's the voice in your head island, and so you train that voice. By day you speak with eyes and hands as taught. By night you speak for yourself to hear. You murmur the old name in your head, pronouncing slowly as if picking up a broken string of beads. Each syllable is one breath, each breath a small stone. You imagine that stone lying in the pocket of an old coat. The coat is gone, but the pocket remains on the map of memory. When panic strikes, you touch the stone by touching the thread on your wrist, the thread Philemon braided and told you to keep. The stone does not save you from wind. It only reminds you that, somewhere, the wind once carried the smell of the home hearth smoke. One day, you realize you have become more automatic than ever. Hearing the glass, your hand is already reaching for the towel. Seeing a purple robe at the eaves, your back has already straightened just enough. You startle not because you are scolded, but because you find yourself half a beat ahead of the order, like a shadow that can read the words before they are spoken. You sit on the edge of the straw bed, count the day's motions, how many apologies without cause, how many extra yeses, how many bows lower than required. You understand, when tired long enough, the body chooses the cheapest solution, compliance, and therefore you must be expensive with what remains, the name, the breath, the stone. In the evening, the lower room's sounds fade. You hear the water in the clay jar, cooling, a very soft sound, only the still can hear. You place a hand on your belly, inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. You whisper, "This is my voice." You call the old name again, pull it across a day of uncertainty like drawing a monofilament line through a rock slit, not forcefully, not hastily, so the line does not snap. Marcus on the next bed murmurs, "A calm day is a day won." You nod without needing to smile. Winning here is not standing over anyone. Winning is keeping yourself. The next morning, you wake before the call, fold the blanket, square the mat's corner, wash your face with a little saved water. You tie your garment cords, touch the thread, check the stone in the imagined pocket, all three are in the right place. Outside, the laws do not change. Isolation still tightens, uncertainty still twists, erasure still grinds. But inside, you add a small tendon to the coat of calm, a whisper, a breath, a name called. And as you step into the corridor, you go like a timekeeper on a long boat. Shoulders loose, eyes lowered, feet light but in your head. A small drum still beats steady, reminding you this trip still has a harbour. You are still here, and as long as you are still here, every technology of breaking will have to work harder to reach the deepest place in you, where one short word still shines. Me. You realize this system has a map not drawn in ink but in habits and glances. It has hierarchy, but the steps are hidden beneath the carpet. The newcomer bears the heaviest load, carrying trays, running errands, door duty, changing water, cleaning the kitchen, ready for every sudden call. Whoever cooperates well, meaning fulfills the role in silence, has a chance to be reassigned to the kitchen, the storeroom, or personal attendance. There, you pass the room with too many lights less often. Whoever resists is hung out in the yard, starved, or transferred to tasks people call brutal, in a voice as flat as a blade. You see clearly, every privilege has a price, and the price list hangs right in the way they call your name. An extra piece of bread is never free. It is exchanged for smoothness when called. Hear your name and answer yes, at once. A half-diagonal step puts you in the exact spot. The hand produces the right item. The gaze drops to the correct empty point. A thicker blanket is a reward for not asking questions, not asking why yesterday was thus, and today is different, why a nod can suddenly become a trap. You learn to be absent while present, hollow eyes, flat voice, a body operating like a water wheel turning evenly. Or you learn to be cunning. Listen to the room's rhythm, anticipate moods, shift your breathing so it slips from the powerful gaze's line. All those paths carry a tax. Some pay with the outer skin. Sun-browned backs, calloused hands, bruises hidden under thin cloth. Some pay from within. The voice in the head shrinks. Memory is planed away like the edge of a wet board. Marcus once tried to run. He was caught in the paved yard, forced to stand until the sun bent his gait into a curve. Since then, his steps carry a very soft crackle of bones healed crooked. Alexios once refused an order. 3 days in the sun without water shortened his speech like a dulled knife, no longer sharp, yet still cutting. You look at them and learn a wider meaning of survive. It is not only to breathe, it is to keep a fragment of humanity still reachable. In that maze, you notice small pathways that rescue one another. Sometimes it is only a piece of bread broken in two for the weakest in the cell. Sometimes it is a very quick look from the threshold, signaling, tonight is dangerous. Sometimes it is an unwritten swap of duty. You take the kitchen for a feverish child, and the other quietly saves you a portion of warm porridge in the morning. Such small gestures are like silent wedges slipped between the cogs of a machine, enough to slow it by half a beat. You realize, kindness here cannot be spoken loudly. It survives by technique. But the system learns as quickly as you do. It knows how to exploit friendship too. A promise of lighter duty, a thick blanket, an extra meal can turn a familiar person into an informer. Sometimes, someone's silence beside you suddenly smells of metal, the smell of ledgers and signatures. You understand. Closeness here is like a slack rope. It can pull you up from the rim of a pit, or it can tighten around your neck at any time. So you practice walking the rope. Put weight in the right spots, change direction before the wind does. Keep balance with things no one can measure. Breathing, pauses, memory. Demetrius moves along the rows like an inventory clerk. He does not need to shout. He prices by looking once long enough. You see him distribute privileges like tools, a token to the kitchen, a key to the storeroom, an errand of personal attendance. Each item comes with a thin string tied to the receiver's wrist. Some rejoice to avoid the noisy room, then realize the storeroom also has hours of surprise inspection. The kitchen also has orders to come down at once. There is nowhere truly safe, only places with less wind. You remember that as you remember how to step on the carpet. Lift the heel with little sound. Let the toes touch first. You also see those who have disappeared in another sense. They stand right next to you and are no longer there. Their eyes drift over everything as through thick glass. They work correctly, sufficiently, cleanly, and in return they are left in peace. That is a valid path of survival, but you know its price. Each day, a new coat of paint covers the inner voice. You tell yourself, if you must paint, leave a small corner untouched where you keep your name. Keep the short sentence, I am still here. When you are assigned to the kitchen one evening, you learn privilege in the form of flavors, the warm smell of baked bread, the scent of oil, the smell of burning wood, things that make memory seem to have a seat. In the rhythm of stirring pots, you hear the head cook remind, fast, even quiet. Fast so your name is not called, even so the pot does not scorch. Quiet so the noise does not creep down to the lower house. In the storeroom, privilege is a key to a cool room where clay jars line up straight. But with it comes the ledger of outflow and inflow, where a small error can turn into one day of sun exposure. In personal attendance, privilege is fewer people and fewer sounds, but the eyes are closer, the questions deeper. You compare and understand. Privilege is only another name for a risky position. You choose a technique for yourself. Count 3 breaths before each decision. Those 3 beats are a pause inserted into the house's noisy score. First beat, you look at what this decision is bribing in you: fear, hunger, or fatigue. Second beat, you ask, what does it take: your name, your promise, or your way of looking at yourself? Third beat, you choose the way that makes you the least smaller. Sometimes, you accept extra bread and agree to lower your eyes 1 degree deeper. Sometimes, you give the quiet shift to someone who has weakened and accept a windier night. There is no beautiful choice, only the choice that keeps the most of what you need to reach morning. On slow evenings, you and Marcus share the polishing of wooden trays. Each swirl of grain is like a small map, reminding you that every smooth surface was once rough. Alexios sits at the door saying nothing, but his fingernail taps lightly on the floor, signaling, listen, and you hear people, wind, spoons, strings, all blending into a complex piece of music. Philemon threads you another bit of string, thinner. Tie it onto the old one, so if one snaps, there is still one left. You smile inwardly. Even kindness has to learn how to keep a spare. Late at night, you lie down, your back touching the cool stone. You think of privilege, as of shadows on a mosaic wall. Beautiful because of the lamps, but still shadows. The only thing that is yours is not the shadow. It is how you place your breath into the empty space between commands. You touch your wrist lightly where the thread lies still and repeat the drill. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, you hear a small voice. Do not sell everything. You agree with that voice as you agree with a friend. Then you sleep, not because of safety, but because you have set your anchor in the right place where the paths of survival, though narrow and crooked, still lead toward dawn. You stand in a pale afternoon, hearing the fan run steadily like the palace's long breath. You narrate in the present, slow and gentle, so the listener can let their shoulders drop. The court arranges a 4th marriage with a clever and practical princess. Everyone expects a smoother beginning, a safe turning for the throne. This time, instructions are shortened, noisy rituals pared back, as if simplicity could lighten the heart. You hear shoes moving more softly, doors opening and closing with care, and you sense a cautious hope stepping into the corridor. Then a very small dawn arrives. A little princess is born, carrying a smile thin as the outline of early morning after a string of long nights. You see the curtains open another sliver of light. Hear the nanny's soft lullaby blending with the gentler heartbeat of those standing near. In that moment, the palace seems to soften, the old stones seem warmer, but the dynasty's dawn has not yet had time to shine, before a familiar darkness creeps onto the wall, the shadow of suspicion. The king, haunted by earlier collapses, reinforces everything. You see secret passages swept clean, food tasters changing shifts constantly, surprise inspections appearing like drafts of wind. Papers are sorted, letters sealed, then opened again in silence. He seeks certainty by looking through small holes in the wall, peepholes slipping between two rooms, between two lives. Yet the more he looks, the more he sees only the reflection of doubt. Every glance could be a signal, every silence could be a ploy. The queen learns to live in a glass cage. You see her measure every step, weigh every word, adjust even her expression so it will not be misread. She practices smiling like a door opened a crack, not too wide to let in a draught, not too closed to be considered cold. Each morning she chooses words as one chooses thin porcelain. Lift lightly, set lightly, so nothing breaks. You do not judge, you only place a hand upon the surface of the air and notice a slight breath-changing rhythm each time someone passes the doorway. The servants are weary from both caring and reporting. You hear the scratch of pen on thick paper, a cut-off sigh, a spoon tapping the rim of a bowl like a mandatory count. They are gradually exhausted by the invisible art of proper procedure, cleaning so it leaves no trace, listening without seeming to listen, recording without showing a line of judgment. Sometimes, just a small mistake, a tea tray arriving late, a window left open too long is enough to trigger a quiet inspection, like shadows gliding along the wall, outside the palace wall. Envoys of other nations write of an unstable court. You read in those reports the scent of cold mist. Fragile agreements slow down. Negotiations are postponed. Promises must wait for final confirmation. The treasury, already thin, must bear the invisible costs of a control machine, always hungry for resources. More guards, more eyes and ears, more seals. Every coin spent on fear is a coin taken from bread, from roads, from a bridge that needs repair. And inside the palace, the longest nights are the quiet ones. Quiet enough that people hear their hearts beating fast with fear, hear candle wax run in tiny lines, hear a breath catch and continue. You invite the listener to inhale 4 counts, hold 7 counts, exhale 8 counts, like laying a warm cloth on the forehead. A child laughs, and a father's joy is both bright and bittersweet. The future of the dynasty, therefore, is both bright and fragile. A babbling sound softens the whole room, but then the shadow of eyes on the wall lengthens again. You see the king stack reports into neat piles, his gaze skimming lines as if seeking a formula. How to be certain? The old question repeats like the ticking of a clock. There is no answer except another layer of guardianship, another command to keep silent, another door to inspect. You understand? When fear puts on the clothes of reason, it persuades with complete tables and procedures that sound very right. But each new fence erected takes away a small piece of trust, like wind whittling the edges of leaves. The queen, in that glass cage, learns to nurture very small pockets of peace. She stands by the window at early morning, letting sunlight glide across the back of her hand like a greeting. She writes a few lines for the day. Today, smile with the child. Afternoon, listen to the bell. Evening, be quiet. Those simple notes are like a grain of salt in a too bland soup, not enough to change everything, but enough to remind that flavor remains. You stand beside her, imagining setting a warm cup of tea on the table, so the scent of herbs threads through the glass, quietly settling on the eyelids. You pull the frame back outside the gate. Look at the map of the country hanging in the study. Borders tremble under candlelight, as if to remind that everything is moving though the palace wants to stand still. A delegation of envoys awaits replies. A team of bridge workers awaits funds. A frontier region awaits reinforcements. You speak softly to the listener. There are times when the only certainty is choosing between more locks and more trust. And here, people still choose locks. At the end of the section, you let the room's light fall. Let the fan return to background sound. You say, the dawn has come, but the shadow of suspicion remains. The wall grows higher, yet the heart grows thinner. The old question still hangs there, how to be certain, while the right answer lies where few dare to look. Presence, listening, and respected boundaries. You gently promise the listener. In the next part, you will go on, still with soft steps, to see where that question will turn the court toward public debates, or toward doors ever more tightly closed. You give a final reminder. Breathe slowly, loosen the hands. Because sometimes, With only a single correct breath, the shadow of eyes on the wall shortens a little. You do not remember exactly the moment hope began to wear away. It is not a cracking sound. It is a quiet process, like the color of stone fading under daily footsteps. You begin to act before anyone can give an order, to guess before a question opens its mouth, to set your smile at the right moment as if flipping a small switch. Everything happens so gently that you hardly think anymore. Your room gains a narrow window opening onto a chalk-colored scrap of sky. Meals come more evenly. Clothes are washed more carefully. Others look at you with a blended gaze, both admiring survival and fearing the price you have paid. You also learn to praise yourself with silence. No more pain. But that sentence is only true because you have become less of a person. You move through the house like a shadow that knows its place, arriving a beat early, withdrawing on time. Demetrius notices this. One morning, he tells you to follow him to the market. Be a model for the new ones. You walk beside him under a sun, struck awning pulsing like a giant lung, the smells of olive oil, iron, and resin braid into a familiar layer, almost comforting. You stand just below the wooden platform, for the first time seeing everything from the other side. The auctioneer rattles off the lines that once poured over your head. Region, age, condition, gentle temperament. You see a buyer's hand test a bicep, lift hair, tilt the chin of the merchandise as if checking a new rope. Then the boy appears. A slender body, ruffled black hair, eyes startled and dry, so much like you at 12 that time steps back half a pace. When he steps onto the platform, a cold needle stabs behind your breastbone. You stagger, saying it is the sun. In truth, it is memory flaring up like fire meeting wind. In an instant, you hear again your father's hoarse laugh. See again your mother's hair smoked by the hearth. Taste again the red dust of the road out of the village gritting your tongue. You do not cry. Tears have learned not to show. But inside, an underground current trembles. The boy does not go to Lysander's house. Someone else draws a purse of silver faster. Demetrius nods, moves on, signals you to follow. You know you have just escaped watching a transformation repeat right before your eyes, but you do not escape the rest. The image of the boy clings to you for weeks like a painful streak of light in familiar darkness. Each night, as the lower house settles, footsteps in the corridor thinning like distant rain, you lie on your side and suddenly see his dry hand gripping the edge of the platform tight to whitened nails. You roll over, touch the thread at your wrist, and count softly. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. The rhythm saves you from drifting, but it does not carry the image away. And strangely, you no longer want it to disappear. Right now you begin a small seeming act. You remember names. Not the new names this house gives everyone, but the names they whisper of their old regions when they are allowed to exchange a single word during a shift change. You remember how Marcus pronounces mist with a light tremble. Remember the word pass in Alexios's voice heavy as stone. Remember Philemon's habit of hiding a final sound when he speaks of river. You tell each other scraps of home without using complete sentences. A stroke of the hand drawing a mountain line in the air. A blink keeping time with a stream. A thin smile at the mention of the hearth smoke's taste. Those scraps are like wooden stakes you drive into the bank before the water rises, so the current, however fierce, must still swerve. You also change your step. Instead of vanishing completely, you leave small signs for the weaker to follow. A towel placed off by half a knuckle means the kitchen is easier to breathe today. A cup turned with its mouth toward the west means avoid this door at night. A wiping streak longer than usual on the table's edge means danger. You do not know whether anyone can read them, but writing those signs makes you feel you are not yet entirely drained. It is not rebellion, it is seeking a slit of wind so a small candle does not die. And then, one sweltering noon, while you help Demetrius check the storeroom ledger, a sudden lightning bolt strikes you in the shape of a simple question. He looks at you, holds a pen, says, "You learn fast." You answer, "Yes." He writes a few more lines, voice even. "You stand beside me today so the others look and learn how. Work will flow better." You say yes again. But on the second yes, you hear very clearly. Your own voice has become too smooth. It slides off without leaving a mark, like water poured over stone already polished. The question comes like lightning slicing across. If that voice leaves no mark, where are you? The question has no immediate answer. It lies still in your chest like a round pebble. You carry that pebble through the day, through the evening meal, past the small window frame onto its scrap of sky. When night falls and the strings above thin, you sit with your back to the wall and whisper the old name, the name you do not dare say aloud. That name returns within you like a faint line of letters beneath a new coat of paint. You do not try to scrape the paint. You only lay your hand over it, keep it warm. For the first time in a long while, you hear a long-forgotten feeling. Shame. Not shame for bowing the head, but for bowing so deep you do not know you are bowing. The next morning you work as usual. Pour, set, turn, wipe. Everything is so smooth that Demetrius does not need to glance, but you change one small detail. As you pass a sick person's bed, you break your piece of bread more neatly, put the larger part into their hand without looking. You know this can be seen as unauthorized. You do it slowly, then withdraw your hand quickly. A very small lightning flash, small enough that only you know has flickered. It does not change the sky's color. It only lets you see the ridgeline of the dark cloud. In the days after, that lightning returns in places no one expects. In the moment you straighten Philemon's blanket corner. In the half-step you retreat, so Marcus need not meet a dangerous gaze. In the decision to save a story about the past to tell on a calmer night, you begin to feel a small sting whenever you are too smooth. A reminder, do not become a perfect surface. You understand, perfection. Here is the reward for polishing away every scratch, and the scratch itself is what tells you that you still feel. From the position of one praised as well-trained, you look straight into the house's lifting, lowering structure like watching a production line run, receive, wipe, arrange, display, replace. People pass through the stages like objects, intake, use, adjustment, discard. You see yourself moving on that conveyor, see also the off-throw point where the expired are pushed away. For the first time, instead of simply keeping pace with the machine, you want to find the stop button. Not by smashing the whole workshop, you know you are not enough. You want to find a new habit. The habit of making the machine work harder when it touches you and those beside you. That night, the sky is still, a thin moon like a blade mark on the window's lip. You lie down, back touching cool stone, hand set on your belly, listening to the breath. You whisper, inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the holding of 1, you promise yourself a very small thing. Each day, do one act that slows the conveyor by 1 notch. A sign, a piece of bread, a step back, a name remembered right, promise made. You feel the heart drop its tempo, like a boat finding a quiet ribbon of water behind a rock. Hope does not return loudly like a drum. It comes back like a thin lightning bolt, flashing and gone, but leaving an afterglow in the eyes. You close your eyes following that afterglow, and in the familiar dark, you know, you are not dead in the most important place. You step into the room tonight and notice the sound is different. Not noisy, not showy with strong whine, but a slow, supple speech, like thin knives polished to a shine. Most guests are scholars, statesmen with many seasons of grey hair. They invoke the names of sages, quote a passage, counter a passage, and slide from innate virtue to virtue by education as smoothly as turning a page. Some lean toward nature. Some are born to rule, some are born to obey. Others speak of training. Placed in the right environment, virtue will sprout like a seed. You pour wine, set your eyes on the empty space between their 2 feet, your breath steady, inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6, and listen to rounded arguments about a natural order they say is eternal. You learn the night's background music quickly. Cups clink once for assent, twice for rebuttal. 1 raised eyebrow equals half a page of counter-argument. A throat. Clearing is the signal to change topics. Ironically, the one who just spoke of justice, of careful measurement of right and wrong, snaps at you for a single drop of wine sliding down the glaze. The one who preaches temperance, self-control, bursts into loud laughter at the humiliation of someone on the floor, as if teaching ethics were only the business of tongues. You adjust the tray, dry the rim of the pour, and realize your hand has become more automatic than thought. But precisely in that automatism, your ear catches something strange. Learning here does not lead them to the good. It is silk wrapped around the lash so the hand that wields it does not feel pain. You stand as if not there, and yet your head opens a mirror that flips its face. Before, each time you were scolded, you asked yourself, where did I go wrong? Tonight, the question changes face. What structure is operating? You see clearly the wire hidden under the carpet. That bright laughter needs the stifled sob on the other side of the room for its melody to be complete. Arguments as beautiful as stone statues require a trembling body to build their moral pedestal. And those who know right from wrong are not blind. They simply choose the profitable part and rewrite the rest with words. An elderly statesman, voice low like a bass scale, asks, "Can virtue be taught, or is it heaven given?" The whole room murmurs. You pour him wine, see in the cup's bottom the reflection of the marking bracelet on your wrist glint, then go dark. That brief glint teaches you a lesson. Anything can blaze if placed at the right angle of the lamp, even a cruel thesis. Move the lamp half a yard, the shadow changes shape. Shift a phrase by half a meaning, the sense changes colour. Therefore, when they say natural order, you hear order of benefit. You gather the fragments of expression like picking pebbles. A thin smile when mentioning born to be a slave. A firm nod like driving a nail when speaking of a calling. A hand tapping the armrest while telling of edification. Each fragment falls into place in the picture you are slowly assembling. You do not need to hate them to see what they are doing. You only need to name it. So when you step out to the veranda to change the wine jar, you whisper to test your own voice in the dark, injustice, then legitimization, and double standard. 3 words fall inside you, with corners, with edges, like 3 stones you can place your hand upon. Naming gives shape to the invisible, makes fear less slippery, and thus gives you something to grip. Going back in, you continue being the shadow that knows how to breathe. You shift your stance by half a foot to avoid the gaze of a guest in triumph. You place the warm towel half a beat late so the hand just flung out must withdraw on its own. You swap a cup at the spot of a new boy's trembling finger, saving him from being scolded for unsteadiness. Small movements, recorded by no one, but they are the commas you insert into the room's long sentence. The sentence has not stopped, but it has breathed. A scholar recites a passage about higher and lower souls. He stresses the word essence, stretching it like a bowstring. You do not argue in your head. You simply observe how he lifts his eyes from the wine cup each time he mentions magnanimity, and how he glues them back when someone falters. Learning, in his hands, is a tool for naming to parcel out souls. Then you remember the morning slave market. Also naming, also parceling, only in the open. Here, it wears a cloak. You quietly catalogue the house like a library. Each laugh has a call number, each cup tap a subject, each small reminder from Demetrius a reference mark. You gradually read the house's language. The metaphor of power is the gaze. The substitution trick is the towel placed at the right moment. The convention of order is the number of couches, the position of lamps, the distance between 2 nods. Once you can read that language, you also learn to write secretly. A semicolon is a slight nod to glide past. A dash is the shortcut to the kitchen. A comma, a breathing space slipped between 2 commands to keep you from being swallowed by the sentence. The night stretches in the manner of those who believe they know right and wrong better than others. You pour, wipe, turn, step back. On the walls, mythic mosaics look down indifferent, like ancient pages that never finish opening. In a rare quiet moment, you let your eyes rest on the small window at the far end of the corridor. A square patch of dark sky, edged with a thin rim of moonlight. You do not dream. Dreaming is a luxury you can no longer spend. You name. This time you add stratification, moralizing interests, fallacy. Those words lie down like temporary paving stones, allowing you to cross a slick patch of floor without slipping. When the lamp's flame draws in, the strings thin, you are ordered to withdraw. The corridor is cool. The smell of damp stone brings you back to your familiar counting. In the lower house, Marcus looks up. His nod is the period at the end of a sentence. You sit on the edge of the straw bed, place a hand on your belly, listen to the lungs, move like two small fans. You note silently. Injustice, legitimization, double standard. Each word, one breath. You suddenly understand why from now on you stop blaming fate. Fate is the story others tell, so you will be obedient. As for you, you choose to read this house like a text, with voice, with device, with places of weakness. And between those dense lines, you will keep slipping in a comma, a breathing space wide enough that you still have a place to stand as a human being. The next morning, everything is the same. Clean, pour, nod. But inside, a small adjustment is in the right place. You do not ask, why do I deserve this? You ask, why can this structure operate? The question changes, the light changes. You see more clearly the rivets on the machine, the joints that may loosen. You are still small, still thin, but you now have words to call things by. And with words, you have a place to put your hand. You straighten the thread on your wrist, and before stepping into the next night, you repeat your small personal drill. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. The comma is set. You are ready to read the next sentence. You touch the morning with a sequence of pre-programmed motions. Fold the blanket to the proper angle. Turn the wash basin a quarter turn so the handle faces the door. Check the thread on your wrist. Then inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. You meet standard quietly. Arrive before being called. Correct mistakes before being scolded. Smile just enough for the corners of your lips to curve without reaching your eyes. Fluency is paid with cleaner clothes, more even meals, and a window as small as a hand, 4 iron bars dividing the patch of sky into 4 lead-coloured panes. Your roommates look at you with mixed eyes, glad for a fate struck less, and afraid for a soul wearing thin like a stone edge licked by water. You read the house's operating rhythm, like a carpenter tapping for the sound in planks. You know when the great hall is likely to storm, when the wine is heavy and the voice is flat. Know when Demetrius is less strict, when he sets the pen down instead of hiding it in his hand. Know which guest likes noise, laughter, shattering early, and who prefers quiet eyes that look long without blinking. Below, straw beds change people like changing straw. Above, the symposium changes guests like shifting winds. You are assigned to be a model. Coach the new. Show how to set a cup so the last drop does not fall. How to retreat half a step to avoid a line of sight. How to let the mind stand half a beat ahead of the body. But amid the small rewards, you feel a loss you cannot name. The voice inside you dims like a lamp with its wick turned down. Shame is no longer an alarm bell but becomes a mechanical motion. Bow, apologize, withdraw. Fear shrinks, hardening into the shape of the iron shackle at the ankle, a neat image, lying still, enough to be present without speaking. You begin to see yourself as a walking tool, convenient, durable, easy to maintain. A kind of household appliance with a common name, Lysander's property. You practice the art of disappearing, like mastering a stage trick. Footsteps land on the seam between 2 tiles, so the sound sinks. Your breath flows to the room's rhythm, so no waves rise. Your gaze hangs at the empty point between the other's 2 feet to avoid any collision. You learn to change your own speed. A little faster when anger is rising, a little slower when silence thickens. You stand in the room as if standing outside the wind, letting everything pass through you as through a door left ajar. You also invent small rituals to keep your emptiness from shattering. Before each night you smooth your hem 3 times, not for the crease, but for the rhythm. When washing your hands, you always let the last drop fall into the center of the basin, a neat sound like a period. Before going upstairs, you touch the thread and whisper a single word, sometimes calm, sometimes still, sometimes enough. These rituals do not change the world. They only give you a small map to walk through fog. You guide the newcomer in a voice just audible. Do not run ahead of fear. Walk alongside it. You show him how to set a fingertip at the cup's base so the hand will not shake. Teach the breathing charm. Teach the method of being absent while present. He nods very quickly, his eyes trying to learn emptiness. You see yourself of seasons past, and understand that a model has two faces, one that helps people be hurt less, and one that teaches them to self-sand to fit the mold. You leave him one last tip. Keep something no one can see. A word, a scent, a note. You know, sometimes that alone is enough to keep a day from collapsing. You record the house in signs instead of letters. A towel folded with one extra crease means long night. A wine jar set closer to the table's edge than usual means go by the kitchen way. A lamp turned half a turn off, center means stand close to the wall. Those signs may be read by no one, but writing them keeps your heart from turning slick. Because you understand, this system does not need shouting to run, it needs you to cooperate with your own numbness. When people are tired enough, the remaining hand will clear the path for the chain by itself. Some nights, you stand before the small window, looking at the scrap of sky divided into 4 by bars. The moon is thin like a knife's cut, laid on the lip of cold stone. You suddenly grasp a simple truth. The smoothness you have is not peace. It is the silence of a drum whose skin has been removed, no longer vibrating to hurt, and no longer vibrating to rejoice. You breathe, hear the lungs expand and contract like 2 patient bellows, and ask yourself, if the self is only a shell, where has the rest gone? The next morning, everything is as usual. Wine poured, towels folded, orders issued. But in your head, that persistent question does not leave. Where has the rest gone? And if it is still somewhere, how do you call it back? You try small paths. You call the old name in your head, slowly, like restringing a broken strand of beads. You secretly sniff an imagined smoke, a smell you conjure from the memory of the hearth to see what it still awakens. You close your eyes between 2 trips up and down the stairs. Listen to your spine, touch the sound of yourself, to see if any place is still warm. You realize the self does not return when you command it. It comes like a wary bird. It only perches when there is a true patch of quiet. So you begin to create small quiets like slits of light. Give part of your bread to the sick without waiting for permission. Step back half a step so a new boy will not be called by name. Add 1 layer of straw to Marcus's bed when the night is cold. Each such act is a small piece of skin stretched back over the drum. Not enough to thunder, but enough for you to hear a low, deep note still alive. You also set limits for the art of disappearing. You allow yourself not to vanish completely in certain moments. When you see someone else's fear, when you hear an unjust sentence, when you pass a lamp about to go out, you allow your hand to tremble a little instead of training it to numbness. You allow your eyes to be wet for 1 beat and then dry again. Those permissions are very small, but they graft shame back in the right place. Not shame for existing, but shame for about to vanish from yourself. Gradually, you see that the hollow inside is no longer an invisible dark, but has edges and borders. You can place your hand on that edge and say, "This is the place I do not want to pass anymore." You cannot break the wall, but you can turn away in time. You cannot haul anyone out of the torrent, but you can throw in a marked stake for the next person to grip. You cannot change the rhythm of the whole house, but you can place commas breathing spaces into it so the sentence of power does not swallow every subject. And tonight, before setting the tray on your hands, you repeat the small exercise of the whispering narrator in your head. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, a thin quiet like a paper's edge, you call a very short word to stand beside you. Me. That word cannot push back the wave. It only gives you a small stone to set your heel upon. You smile. The smile still just enough. But this time it touches the eyes a little. Then you step out, continue working with all the fluency you have learned, and with a new resolve, to return from the edge of disappearance, 1 breath at a time. You stand under the market awning that pulses like a giant lung, the smells of olive oil, resin, and old iron blended into a thick, hot layer of air. Demetrius tells you to walk close, shoulders straight, chin lowered by a degree, face flat like water before it has time to ripple. Choose the goods, he says. voice like tapping on a tally board. You say yes, just enough, letting the answer fall to the stone floor and dissolve. You know your part. Stand still in the right spot. Be a disciplined shadow, so the seller's eyes gleaming like blades, and the buyer's fingers soft and cold can see the result of good training. You do not need to speak. You only need to be present like a breathing example. Then the boy appears. A small child with ruffled black hair, eyes wide and dry, thin yet with the stubborn toughness of an age not yet grown. He steps onto the wooden platform, sun scorching his thin cheeks, both hands unconsciously curling as if searching for a rope that is not there. The image slaps against you like cold wind lashing through live coals. You falter half a beat. You say it is the sun, but in truth it is memory popping its lid like a pot whose cover is yanked off the peg. In your head, the smoky hearth of home flares up. Your mother's call across the earthen yard, your father's hoarse laugh after shouldering a bundle of wood, the smell of damp straw after rain slipping into your hair. Your throat goes strangely dry. On your face, nothing changes. Inside, an underground current abruptly shifts course. The auctioneer recites the familiar formulas, age, region, gentle temperament, as if reading labels stuck on a jar. A buyer's hand lifts the chin, smooths the hair, presses lightly on the boy's bicep as if testing a new rope. You see yourself at 12 paused right there. Those eyes once lived in your head. That red dust once lay on your tongue. Someone else draws a purse of silver faster than Demetrius. The boy is brought into a house not belonging to Lysander. You do not have to witness your copy being ground down in the very place you returned to. But the boy's image, like a thin streak of flame, sticks to your retina and follows you all the way back to the lower house. That night, when the strings above thin and the air in the cellar is cool like stone, you lie on your side, hand on your belly, and count your breath. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. Each beat is a small boat drifting through a narrow spot in your chest. In the hold of one, you hear your own name. The old name knock against the chest wall like a pebble. You call it softly, then stop. You understand, hope does not return with drums and beats. It returns as a very small warmth, enough that you have not turned entirely to stone. From that day, dreams that had gone mute murmur back like water beneath tile. You begin to whisper the names of those in the cell, not the house's easy-to-call names, but the names they brought from the old regions. You remind each other of tiny living details, who likes the crisp edge of bread, who often has a trembling hand when pouring water near full, who calls for mother in sleep with a lengthened sound at the end. These small pieces are like straws, but when tied together, they become a cloth pouch knotted tight at the heart, enough for that heart to still feel weight. You and Marcus devise a silent language. An incomplete blink is an alarm. 2 taps of fingers on the bed edge mean stop. 3 taps mean use the kitchen route. A fingertip gliding across a palm line once means quiet night. Twice means do not go into the yard during the lamp change hour. You split a piece of bread, push the larger part into a weaker hand, then withdraw quickly, like setting a stone beneath a current. Philemon braids you another thin thread and says, tie it over the old one. If one snaps, there is still one. You smile inwardly. Even kindness must learn to keep a spare. You stop comforting yourself with the word fate. You name what is happening, like sticking labels on jars in a storeroom. Trade in bodies, legitimizing cruelty, blaming the victim. Naming gives fear an edge. With an edge, there is something to grip. In your head, you arrange those labels on an invisible shelf, so when needed, you can touch the right word without touching your own skin. You realize correct knowledge is also a kind of thin armor. It cannot stop the blade, but it lets the blade slip more. The next day, walking along the corridor, you change the habit to pause half a beat before each open door. You glance quickly, check one very small thing, the position of an oil lamp, the orientation of a cup's mouth, then move on. Those trifles become characters for those who can read them. No one teaches it, but you and others like you invent a shared notation system. A lamp turned half a turn askew, stand close to the wall, a towel folded with one extra crease, long night, a wine jar placed near the edge. Take the kitchen way. That small map, never drawn on paper, helps you slip through sharp turns without breaking. Demetrius sometimes glances at you, neither praising nor correcting. He has already seen the effect of a well-trained model in the way the new ones mimic your gait and your breath. You know, smoothness is the ticket for getting through the day, but under the ticket you hide another slip of paper, a list of real names, written by memory. You read them again in your head during hand-washing, each name a drop of water falling right into the center of the basin, pronounced into a round period. You think of the boy on the wooden platform and add an empty box to the list. You do not know his name. You temporarily call him with an invisible word, so that each quiet night you place your hand on that word, like setting your hand on the shoulder of someone walking behind. One afternoon the kitchen is short-handed, and you swap shifts for a little one burning with fever. You tell Marcus to signal that the kitchen route is easier to breathe tonight by turning the cup's mouth toward the west. Such petty things pull the whole night a notch back from the cliff's edge. You realize saving here is often only making the gear turn half a beat, slower enough for someone's hand to withdraw in time. The next night, you look up at the stone ceiling and see hairline cracks like taut threads. You tell yourself, hope is not a flame, it is a warm patch. That warm patch comes from things no one records as merit. An extra piece of bread, a blanket pulled up to the shoulders, a small sign fixed to the table's edge. It is not enough to light the whole cellar. It is enough that you are not too cold. You touch the thread on your wrist. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, you set the tiny anchor back into the right place between your own name and another's. You know, tomorrow the market will still open, the wooden platform will still stand, the hawker's call will still be as regular as an equation. You cannot change that calculus. But since the boy stepped up and popped the lid off memory, you have gained a secret task, gathering glimmers. Each piece is a name, a sign, a shared breath. You collect them like picking embers, tuck them into a small cloth pouch tied tight at your heart. That pouch does not make the house change, but it makes you heavier by exactly the weight of a human being, enough that you stand firmer against a gust. Before sleeping, you hear the straw bed breathe under your back, the water in the jar cooling, Marcus's fingers tapping lightly in 3 familiar beats. You answer with 2 beats, then close your eyes. In the dark, the boy on the wooden platform passes by like a thin streak of light. You do not chase that streak. You let it lie in the room like a north-pointing needle. Tomorrow morning, when you step into the corridor, you will glance quickly in that direction and set down a comma, a breathing space between 2 commands. Only a single comma, but enough that your heart remembers it is still learning how to stay. You grasp the change before anyone has time to put it into words. Not because Demetrius announces it, he always announces very briefly, but because the way the house looks at you is different. The lamps are the same, the wall mosaics the same, but the pairs of eyes have slid off you, seeking newer faces, more fresh. You are called less, stand under the glaring lights less. In exchange, your knees tell a story with dull aches, and the scars change color like a rock after rain. You look at your hands. The skin has thickened, the palm lines like dried streams. One morning, Demetrius steps in, sets the pen on the table as if placing a period, and says 2 words, "Sell to the mines." He does not need to explain. In this house, everyone knows what the mines mean. A road sloping into darkness, where breath tightens day by day until it stops. On the last night in the old cell, you sit with your back to the wall, listening to the sound of water cooling in the clay jar, the straw breathing under your back, Marcus tapping his fingers in 3 familiar beats. He comes close, does not say sorry or be strong, words too brittle in this cellar, but slips into your palm a roughly sharpened bit of metal, as small as 2 finger joints. You have the right to choose. The sentence drops like a pebble into the basin's bottom, neat, round, clear. You grip the shard, feel cold, shoot along the lifeline. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, 3 doors appear quietly, like 3 footpaths splitting off from a forest edge. The first door, run. You see yourself plunging into the night, chains scraping stone, shouts echoing across the paved yard. You know that road is almost hopeless, not because your legs are not fast, but because the outside world has been calculated so your feet have nowhere to set down. The The second door, revenge. A sweet, venom-strong flash, sweet in the way poison, is then everything collapses into darkness. You know that sweetness will go out faster than a sip of wine, leaving a silence with no drums. The third door, ending. Voluntary, neat, no one commanding. But that is a door opening onto a wall. 3 roads, each reasonable. Each demands payment in what you have least. You set the shard on your thigh, let your palm touch the sharp edge without squeezing. You do not want to turn those choices into an equation. You just want to listen for what sound remains in your chest. You remember Marcus's words. You have the right to choose. A right, not an order, not an incitement. A right like a small key that opens a space exactly 1 breath wide. You close your eyes, call the old name in your head, and listen to see if that word still resonates a note. The note is not loud, only as loud as a drop falling into the basin's center, but clear. Shame slips across you. Not shame for fear, but for nearly forgetting that in this world there is still the sentence, "What do I want to leave behind?" You sit a little longer, count the commas you have managed to insert between commands across so many seasons. A piece of bread split in 2, a blanket corner pulled higher, a cup's mouth turned west as the sign, "Take the kitchen way." Do those small things change the house's arithmetic? Number. But they slow the gear by half a beat, enough for someone to pull a hand back. You look at the shard in your hand and understand that it too is only a tool like the towel, like the cup, like the mark on the table's edge. Any tool has 2 faces, save or hurt, open or close. Meaning lies in the hand that passes it on. You stand, walk in the dark toward the wall, accustomed to the habit of light falling on it. In the gap between 2 stones, cool and damp like a well's throat, you hide the shard deep, right where your fingertip just touched a cold rim. You do not wish for whoever finds it to choose any particular thing. You only pass on the right. As Marcus passed it to you, you dust over it with a thin layer, tap twice on the wall's edge your and his private sign, then step back. In your palm, the bite of cold is gone. In its place is the just right heaviness of a decision. When you turn back in, Marcus is still sitting at the bed's edge, eyes not asking, lips not needing to press. You speak softly enough for only the straw pillow to hear. "Leave it." He nods, bows his head like placing a period. The 2 of you do not trade philosophy. In this house, the best philosophy is a small object set in the right place. You lie down, hand on your belly, repeat the old drill. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, you feel the small flame not flare up, only widen by half a knuckle. At dawn, the chain arrives like an appointment. You walk down the corridor, past mosaics telling heroic tales, spears, feats, heads crowned with laurel. You smile very slightly, a smile no one sees because you understand that your story has no drumbeat. Your story is a steel sliver, as small as 2 knuckles hidden in a stone gap, a sign of turning a cup's mouth west, 2 taps on a wall edge, enough for someone to find a way to breathe. You carry no exploits, you carry a legacy. The right to choose to go or stay, to wait or turn, to continue or close for the one who comes after. In the yard, sunlight pours down, colder than yesterday's heat. Demetrius stands there, his eyes like a final inspection mark. He does not smile, does not frown. He simply does his job, hand over. You do yours, step by step, even, your hands empty but not hollow. Philemon slips through the line, manages to touch your wrist very quickly. The old thread is still there, frayed but unbroken. Marcus follows behind, taps the door frame twice, and falls silent. You do not look back. You understand that everything necessary has already been said in those signs. The gate opens. The chain tightens at the ankle, cold like a command sentence written straight. You look down, see the old scar beneath the new link like a faint line under fresh ink. You inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, you hear a very short sentence beat against your ribs. Manage to leave something. That sentence does not make you stronger. It only makes you heavier by exactly the weight of a passed-on thing. On the way, being escorted to the gate, you pass the heroic mosaics once more. The figures on stone raise hands amid flat glory. You wonder, if there were a mosaic for victories without drums, what would it paint? Perhaps only a narrow stone crevice with a tiny glint inside, a cup turned with its mouth west, a hand placed on a belly in a well-practiced breath. Perhaps two soft taps on a wall in a quiet night. Perhaps no one would stop to look. But you know, in the nights to come, when the upper house shakes with laughter and the lower house frays with breathing, someone will set a hand on that exact stone, and in a brief moment, like a comma between two commands, that person will understand, no one saves anyone alone. We only pass one another small tools to keep the human part. The gate closes behind you. The road ahead is red dust and dry wind. You walk, not fast, not slow, eyes resting in the empty space between the 2 feet of the escort as always. But in your head, a drum has been restretched with a thin skin, the skin of a decision. It does not thunder. It beats evenly, and each beat is a reminder. Your legacy is not a grand story. Your legacy is a place for someone else to grip. You nod very slightly, as if agreeing with the narrator in your head. Then you go on, carrying a silence with weight, and a small rite already passed back to those behind you. You go up the mountain at a pace not of your choosing, the chain ringing at your ankle like a small bell marking time. You do not run. The guards and the rocky grade do not allow it. But more importantly, you want to look closely at the world once more, like someone tidying an old room before locking the door. You listen to wind threading through the pines, to water thin as a thread slipping over stone, to the smell of wet weeds holding the night's chill. Each sense is a semicolon you insert into the sentence of the road. You count your breath, inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6, and feel your chest open a narrow slit of light wide enough for the scenery to pass without breaking inside you. The mining camp needs no introduction. It opens with the feel of stone dust scraping your throat, with the groan of pit props like an old spine. Tents are pitched on terraces of earth, ropes hang in rows, water tubs sit where shade never quite reaches. Newcomers learn quickly how to cough and swallow, then cough more softly, then swallow as a survival motion, as if drinking a layer of grey sky. The quota nailed to a wooden board sounds like a cruel joke. So many baskets of rock in so many hours. Whoever lags loses rations or is shifted to deeper shafts. You look down at your hands. The palm lines, already like dried streams, now hold white powder in their nail beds. The tunnel is as narrow as a windpipe. You stoop, crab step forward, shoulder brushing stone that feels falsely cool. Torchlight licks the walls, revealing fresh chisel marks like wounds still wet. The timbers propping the roof creak, a language you quickly learn. Long notes are lament, short ones are warning. Sudden silence means stop and listen deeper. You learn to press your palm to the rock and feel the faint tremor sliding through bone. Steady tremor is safe. Jerking tremor means slow. Tremor shattering into many layers means pull back. An older man takes your hand, sets it in the exact spot where the rock speaks, and whispers, "Listen long and you'll know." Rock has its own voice. Amid dust and panting, another society sprouts like roots seeking water in poor soil. The weak are covered for, shifts swapped by those stronger in the worst hour. Food passes from hand to hand by silent rules. Bowl tilted left means for the feverish. Tilted right means split in two. A signaling network runs the tunnels like an underground vein. 3 taps is danger, 2 taps is safe, 1 tap is switch rolls. You repeat it in your head to keep from forgetting, and add a small sign of your own. 2 strokes down the sleeve mean water in the northeast corner. A dab of black soot on the shovel's edge means roof checked. Most important is the ritual of calling names. In the rare rests between shifts, torches set at a slant, so shadows wobble on the walls like birds darting past. Everyone in turn speaks the names of the dead. Not to count, but to keep. Each name comes with a brief memory. He laughed hoarsely like an old string. She liked the crisp edge of bread. He tapped 3-2 when afraid. Such fragments are small stones raising grave markers of sound. When it is your turn, you tell. A boy sold because of drought. A youth who learned to disappear to lessen pain. A person who hid a knife in a stone crack for the next one. When you finish, your back feels lighter by half a beat. as if the load has been shifted onto other shoulders. You learn the unwritten laws of the world under the mountain. No one shouts, because shouting sets the rock trembling off rhythm. No one boasts, because boasting exposes the way to live. When a person collapses, the whole group automatically changes positions like a flock-shifting formation in wind. The strong fall back to shoulder, the quick stand front to open the way. The ones who hear rock best walk beside the wall with an ear pressed close, signaling by fingers. You realize resistance here is not loud. It is to maintain human habits in inhuman conditions, sharing portions, calling names, learning the language of stone to avoid senseless death, and writing history with breath. Sometimes, someone carves a small mark on the wall, a bird with a clipped wing but raised head, a twig of olive with only 2 leaves, a square window opening to an imagined sky. No one asks who drew it. No one signs. You add your own sign, a small comma cut across a ridge, breathing space. Passing by, you touch it with a fingertip, as if touching an old anchor. People smile faintly at new drawings, smiles that do not sound out, only make the dust at the eye's corner a little more damp. Night falls, and wind at the shaft mouth draws across like someone pulling a cold ribbon. You lie in the hut, back on plank, a hint of resin stirring old memory. Marcus is not here. He stayed below in the city, but his tapping still follows you through 4 walls. 3, 2, 3. You answer by touching 2 fingers to the bed frame. 2, 1, 2. No sound is needed. Memory has learned to speak without voice. You think of the small knife you hid, then of the invisible knives being passed here. A wooden spoon rounded to spare blisters, a new knot in rope that does not bite the wrist, a common breathing line to get the group past a steep stretch. Inhale 4, hold 1, exhale 6. You hear the whole hut take the count, breath flowing like a gentle stream. The next day, you are assigned to a side tunnel, where the rock is thin and the crackle like mosquitoes. The older man teaches you the trick of hearing the roof's breath. Set a fist to it. If cold spreads slowly, it is safe. If it spreads fast, there is a fissure. You trust that trick as you trust a compass. You also pass to the new ones, the trick of keeping an eye. A lamp half a turn askew means hug the wall. A shovel propped with its handle touching ground means soft stratum. 3 crossed soot streaks mean take the long way. Such things do not lighten the quota, but they make risk less random. And in that reduced randomness, a person can keep a story of their own, however short. Today I split a loaf for a stranger. I carved a window on the wall. I called my own name in my head without shaking. In a rare short rest, someone brings from the upper shaft a tiny pine sprig, its tip sticky with resin. The whole hut passes it hand to hand, each person drawing 1 breath. The resin's scent pulls in another sky with no roof. You suddenly see the faces around you more clearly, the line of an eyebrow, a dust smear at the eye's corner, a crease at the mouth's edge. You realize that in the mind's darkness, the true face is not what people hide, but what they save. You softly call each person's name in your head and place them on the invisible shelf where you arrange labels. Hears Rockwell, shares quickly, laughs hoarsely, taps true. You add a slot with your own name, not to glorify yourself, but to avoid disappearing again. On the last night of the first week, you sit alone at the tunnel mouth, feeling ground cold rising through your seat. On the low roof, the torch glow skims the chisel marks, each mark a sentence not yet finished. You murmur, silent resistance, underground society, calling names. 3 words like 3 bricks forming a small step. You place your foot on the first step with a very small act. Dot a comma on the wall edge where sweat drips. The second step, swing by the next hut and leave half a piece of bread. The third step, teach a newly arrived boy how to hear the rock breathe. Done, you stand, inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold of 1, you hear that inside you is no longer hollow. It is filled by something very thin but real, like the warmth of many hands passing a small pine sprig. Here, amid dust and old timbers creak, you understand. The mind's history will not be set in mosaics. It is being written in synchronized breaths. In the sound of 3 is danger, 2 is safe, and in the way people keep one another's names until the torches go out. You know the end comes before it even touches you. Not the whip, not the shout, but fatigue layered thin like stone dust. Each morning your breath shortens a little. Your lungs whistle like a cracked flute. After a minor cave-in, you rise more slowly than usual. The cough stretches on like an unlit tunnel, the echo from your chest answering itself. Those beside you understand without asking. They form a tight circle, warm hands laid on back and chest, passing a warmth that both saves and sends off. You lie on your side, cheek against cold plank, hearing clearly the dust flaking from the wall and falling with a far-off patter like distant rain. Somewhere in the shadows, someone sets a small breathing count for you. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. But at the word hold, your chest slips the beat, like a dried-up stream with only stones knocking together. In that paper-thin pause, you follow the familiar sounds being kept alive for you. 3 very soft taps far away, danger. Then 2 taps nearby, safe. You smile. It turns out people are still guarding one another with the language that has saved so many shifts. Marcus is not here, but you still hear his rhythm in memory. 3, 2, 3, like a small cord tied at your wrist. An older person bends to your ear and whispers a list of names, from the first who left the shaft last winter to the one who fell just last week. Each name is a stone set in the right place, raising a bracing wall for your heart that is about to thin. When your turn comes, you bring your lips very close to the air and spell the old name, timid yet bright, so it does not have time to go astray. You do not close your eyes in surrender. You close them to see clearly what must be carried. The square patch of sky long ago divided into 4 by bars. The wall mosaics telling feats in the house above. The small signs carved into table edge, wall edge. A steel sliver as small as 2 finger joints hidden in a stone crack. Quiet hands shifting rations, and the sound of someone calling your right name on a windy night. You remember even the commas you have stubbornly slipped between commands. A blanket pulled up to the shoulders, a cup turned with its mouth west, a half step back so someone else would not be called. Small things like grains of sand, but under the machine's weight, it is the sand that makes the gear creak. The cough returns, at first in short jerks then long, like a black snake uncoiling out of your chest. A boy new to the shaft hands you a warm cloth heated by his palms, a cloth so ordinary it becomes precious. You see each face around you more clearly in the low torchlight, a silver dust streak at the eye's corner, a crease at the mouth's edge, eyebrows bristling from holding back a sob. They promise nothing grand. They simply lay one more layer of hands on your chest, one over another, like wedging more props under a tiring roof. Somehow that warmth brings you back to the right rhythm. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In the hold, you place a very small message. Leave it behind. The message travels through the fingers, slips into skin already calloused, and you know it finds its place. You think of Demetrius, of Lysander, of those symposium nights where laughter needed a new background note to ring. You do not send them anything. You send the person standing next to the lamp, about to gutter a gesture you have learned. Tilt the bowl left, if it is for the feverish. Mark 3 crossed soot lines if a long way round is needed. Tap twice on the wall edge if the tunnel mouth is calm. The silent laws of the underworld suddenly become a complete language. You see, you are not dying into silence, but dissolving into signs enough for someone to read and live. Outside the shaft mouth, wind rubs the rope like bowing an old instrument, sounding a few low notes you have not heard in a long time. You want to tell someone you are not afraid of the dark, because the dark now is not as dense as before. It is looser in its weave because it holds many names. Someone begins the name, calling ritual. His voice is low, slow, and each name is set down like a light hammer tap, not to nail shut, but to remind. You slip into that list without being swallowed. You become a name for someone later to touch when lost. In the deepest place of the quiet, you listen to the rock, a steady tremor, a very soft breath of the roof. You smile once more, knowing this shaft, instead of locking you in, is opening a way that passes through others. The last breath arrives like a thread thin, but tough. You inhale for 4, hold for 1, and that one lingers longer than all the others, like someone tarrying before closing a door. You exhale for 6, slow, even, so the warmth can pass through the stacked hands. There is no crash, no trumpet, only a very small yes from the shaft, as if it agrees. You go, but the story does not stop where the lungs stop. It slides out along the drafts, clings to fingers that know to tap 3 for danger, 2 for safe. It climbs past rough steps, reaches the shaft lip, follows the feet of those changing shifts back to the huts, then follows them down the mountain, slipping into stone-paved streets. It passes the lovely lamp-hung house, where people still speak of justice, of temperance, passes libraries full of moral books, crosses even the brightly lit cities of another time. There, people still admire art and debate right-wrong, and somewhere there are still machines that need someone to disappear so they run smoothly. Your story does not demand that listeners be afraid. It demands that they remember. Remember that every laugh upstairs always has an underlying note. Remember that knowledge has meaning only when it can stop a hand that is tightening. Remember that a small comma set in the right place can save an entire sentence from swallowing its subject. If someone is now listening to this story while getting ready to sleep, perhaps you tonight, I invite you to place a hand on your belly and try our rhythm. Inhale for 4, hold for 1, exhale for 6. In that hold, thin as a paper's edge, call a name anyone who ever pulled you back from a ledge with a small gesture. Calling a name keeps someone with their human part and also keeps you with yours. And then, if tomorrow you meet a machine that needs oil from someone's disappearance, try slipping a comma into it. A question, a look, a split piece of bread, a cup turned with its mouth west. Not to become a hero, only to make the gear think again for half a beat, enough time for a hand to withdraw. And remember, sometimes, a small steel fragment hidden behind a stone is enough to open an entire passage. A hastily carved mark on a wall is enough for someone to read the way to breathe. 2 soft taps in the night are enough for the whole hut to change formation. You set your story down here, in the warmth lingering on the fingers, and rest easy. Those who remain have promised not loudly, not with oaths that they will remember. The rest I send to you who are closing your eyes. May you sleep more peacefully, not by forgetting, but by knowing. Knowing how to call the right name, knowing how to leave a small tool in the right place, and knowing that the echo of a steady breath travels very far through the tunnels of time.